It seems pretty standard with like Dark Souls, or right? The soul's like the embodiment of the being. Isn't like the hollowed entities end up like losing their soul over time just because they lose like their sense of will, I think it is.
Soul power is redirected by the Maiden in Black, we are granted possibility, allowing us to better interfere with the laws of nature. Things like conjuring fire or curing sickness, these spells become possible through intelligence, defined as our ability to comprehend things, and faith, our conviction in their reality.
And then there's the ability to run better that she also channels. That mystical ability to train your stamina.
These magics are formally known as the soul arts, and with them, man has the power to meddle with creation. However, consider the words of Uria, the witch.
If there is a God, he gave us souls to do good, not to practice witchcraft.
So,
I mean, I feel like that's a little questionable in this game. Because, I mean, I guess there's faith abilities in Dark Souls, but like, yeah, there's faith ability in Dark Souls. That's why I'm like, I mean, I guess there were no faith abilities in this game, right? It was all just pure magic, which is interesting in and of itself, right?
to rectify this, on the second day, a soul-devouring demon was placed upon the earth. What is a demon? A demon is a beast with the ability to rob living things of their souls. A demon devours these souls and amasses them into a particularly large soul known as a demon soul.
Wait, so were those demons or were those? I mean, I guess it makes sense. He was getting pretty large and mutated, so he's taking other people's souls. It just makes sense, right?
Naturally, these demon souls possess power that's incomparable to ordinary souls, and that power is further shaped by the body housing it.
He was so durable, man. I always hated running into these dudes. It was just better to run past them in the end, and even then they shoot fireballs halfway across the room. But when one got killed by the penetrator, that was satisfying to see.
And despite demons being loosely defined at one point as beyond human, anything can become a demon. Even a human. Even you.
Like the King Alon came the deep at the end, but he like made a deal with the old one.
Who is the Maiden in Black?
This is something I've been wanting to know. She's just been kind of chilling there.
She's the heroine of this story, who enables your level ups. Blinded with wax, this candle maiden performs her duties, going around and keeping the temple's lights on with her lamplit staff.
So she literally goes about the whole place, lighting everything up. That's dedication to a job. That's dedication.
Which makes her, in many ways, the first firekeeper. So on that note,
I understand that reference. I played through Dark Souls.
I'd like to quickly announce December's displate. This is Firekeeper. Have
All right, we're
was
gonna
once, and thank you.
skip that ad.
So
That does
despite
look
her
nice, though.
subdued manner, the Maiden in Black was once one of the Old One's most dangerous demons.
What? Really? Yeah, well, he's probably gonna
And
explain
while
why.
we don't know of her past deeds or misdeeds,
Well then, I mean, I guess
she too is bound to the Nexus like the Monumentals, like us, and like the Old One. What is the Old One? It's the original demon.
wait. So you're not going into how or what? So how do we even? I mean, at least how we know that she's one of the most dangerous, or was one of the most dangerous.
That was placed upon the earth.
The Old One is the bottomless pit of nothingness, with an insatiable appetite for the souls collected by its faithful demons.
In order to end all life, this ancient beast curates demons to gather up all souls as it slowly spreads.
We never really encountered any of these guys. I feel like it would have been nice to at least see one of these dudes like from afar. Maybe we did. Maybe we just weren't being observant enough. Yeah.
It's the deep fog across the world. What is the deep fog? It's a thick, colorless mist that started to spread upon the Old One's awakening. No one outside can see through the fog, and anyone who attempts to enter it disappears, never to return.
That's not the fog gates, is it? So it has the ability to conjure fog gates, so. Okay. I mean, it makes sense people disappear if they just keep dying when they enter the harder areas, but
The one exception to this is the mighty warrior Valifax, who tore through the fog and told the world of Boletaria's plight. It is through this fissure that you enter the fog in the introduction.
So that you may lull the old one back to slumber.
Inside all of the engulfed
that part I sort of remember. But we're not the guy he's talking about, so I don't know. I still don't get what these gates had to do exactly, but you know, clearly it was outside of like normal humans, yeah, because it's like a little like tear in space. But then again, so were the monuments we traveled through.
lands look much the same as they did before, but with misty distortions further diffusing each section of each world. But because of this diffusion of space, we can even visit other worlds in our diffused soul form. Furthermore, the demon vanguards near the edges of the fog are called diffused vanguards, and even the old one, at the root of it all, is called the diffused one. So diffusion is mentioned a lot more in the Japanese text, and for good.
Okay. So it makes sense that they're not as powerful. King Alon is basically able to like he needed to do all the things that the old yes.
Good reason, because think about it. The soul is the logic of the world, and the soul grants humans clarity. Fog, by nature, obscures that clarity, and therefore, since clarity is so important to the logic of the world, the very fabric of reality.
That parry he had was clean. I should have been parrying from the very beginning of this game, man. But I don't think I can parry most other Souls games, so maybe I should practice this. You know, just give it a shot.
Reality has become tested. That is why the world needs monumentals.
We preserve the fabric of reality.
I forgot about these little baby dudes. Okay, so these guys were them in a minute. But little baby dudes preserve fabric of reality.
If life, especially within the deep fog, relies on perception to shape reality, what happens when there's nothing there to perceive it? Well, then nothing exists.
And a land barren of souls is absorbed by fog and banished to the infinite darkness.
Okay. You know, that kind of makes me wonder if, like, Bloodborne was an area where they lost their souls, they were banished to the darkness, you know, kind of similar to, like, the Void of Space, and then that's why they relied so much on blood, you know, and blood echoes, because the blood, like, embodied the same kind of vibe as the souls they lost that they got from the... They either held it in their being, or, like, they got it from, like, Aldrich entities, but we're talking demon souls right now, so...
One of the only things keeping the enveloped world bound to reality are the souls observing it. And so, the demons devour those souls. Everyone and everything must be soul-starved. What are the soul-starved? The soul-starved are living beings, but robbed of their souls. Life can exist without a soul, but at that point it's arguably not you that is alive. Souls permit living things agency, and thus a will which cultivates consciousness and personality, so without a soul, one is simply an empty husk.
One might even say that you're hollow. I know.
Acting solely on instinct, hungry for the soul that it now lacks. So it's no surprise that those within the deep fog trade in souls.
I wish to stay here, but I need souls to remain safe.
I do not remember this lady at all. I mean, we probably should have encountered her before, but we might not have explored enough.
As you know, of course.
Those who become starved are often enslaved by the demons to help gather more souls. For examples of this, look to the soul-starved depraved ones. The miners, the soldiers of Boletaria, they're all united against you because of your sanity.
Those miners and those depraved ones were so tanky compared to every other enemy game. I don't know why they were as tanky as they were. Like, the miners, I guess if they were kind of like dwarves, then it makes sense. You know, they're rocky, I guess, in a lot of myths and legends, you know. Dwarves has that kind of like a rocky or sturdy constitution. But, like, why were they the depraved ones? Because they were, like, diseased, they became stronger because they just couldn't die for some reason.
Your souls. One soul starved creates another, and then gathered souls make their way up the chain, collected by the archdemons in service to the old one. What is an archdemon? They're a demon appointed by the Old One to lead other demons, benefiting from the souls that their underlings gather before passing them along.
I'm wondering now, why was the Tower Knight so big and huge? Was he just a demon in a suit of armor? That literally it? In that case, what about the Penetrator? Did he choose to be strong or big? Is that why he was like beyond the Tower Knight?
Each demon chief commands the lesser demons in a particular area, typically their land of origin, but no matter their individual motivations, all is in service to the Old One. Why does the Old One exist?
This is something I'm wondering more.
Because man was meant to use their souls for thought, not sorcery. The soul arts naturally cause man to turn on each other, to acquire each other's power, so on the first day, God must have witnessed humans abusing his gift of clarity to wish harm upon creation itself. That's why, on the second day, God fought poison with poison. Who is God? God is simply the nameless creator referenced in the prologue. His character, if you can call it that, is mentioned in a couple of other places. First, by Alant, who believes that life is suffering and says that God was actually merciful in his creation of the Old One. Second, he's mentioned as a malicious force in the item description of the Northern Regalia, a sword God left behind in the world along with the Old One.
I don't think we ever came across this area. We missed so much in this game. It's crazy. Maybe not so much, but like enough where, like, just seeing that we could have gotten the whatever this sword is.
This sword splits into two opposing blades, Soulbrand and Demonbrand, which present man with two paths. Be human and use the soul for thought, or be demons, coveting the souls of others. But humans continued to use the soul for magic for much of history. For simplicity, this history can actually be quite neatly divided into three eras: the Mythic era, the Classical era, and the Medieval era.
Okay, I mean, is just based on reality then? Because that seems to make a lot of sense, actually.
What was the Mythic era? So just like mythology in our own world, where superhuman heroes walked the earth, the Mythic era could have been an age of legendary heroes who could perform feats that were truly beyond man. Evidence of this time include Duran, the demigod, Big M, who slaughtered dragons.
Oh, so there was a demigod. The Old King. Interesting.
With his bare fists, the hero mentioned by the rune sword and shield, and also the storm rulers of the Shadow Men. Naturally, there should have been a sharp decline in magical strength after this. What was the Classical era? The cultures succeeding the heroes of the Mythic era continued to pursue the soul arts.
Okay, so they tried to obtain like their own powers up to the levels of like those mythical entities.
Recognizing this power as somehow divine, each incorporated magic into their religion, though none of these pagans worshipped the singular god described earlier.
Okay, so a lot of false religions. I mean, I feel like that's, I mean, a lot of other religions would call like every other religion false, but, you know, it seems pretty on brand for most societies, like most stories, I guess.
But most guilty of all in their pursuit of power were the Monumentals. Who were the Monumentals? They were the major power of the Classical era, this magic-based society that controlled the world thanks to their mastery.
Oh shoot,
of
I just
soul
realized
arts.
it's not.
It was this insatiable pursuit of power that led them to discover, worship, and eventually awaken
There we go.
the Old One, kickstarting the first Scourge.
What was it? It was cut content, right? It wasn't meant to be broken lore-wise, but like they just couldn't have time for it, I guess it was. But clearly it's that one on the far right, which it looks like it would have been like more of like a demon realm. So there would have been the demons, the plagues, the you know, the undead area, Storm King. I don't know why the Storm King was connected to dead, though. It's curious. The Dwarven Kingdom, kingdom of like, humans, and I guess I don't know if the Tower of Latri was like an academy. Or it might have been sorcery, actually. That would make sense. Okay.
what is an archstone. Continuing to use the power of the soul arts, the monumentals crafted keystones, which were capable of linking people and places alike. This bond can be manipulated for teleportation or even bodily restoration.
Yeah, and that's why they were all connected. Okay, even though the world was diffused. That makes sense.
So what is soul form? It's the phantom body that you possess.
Look on dude's face. And then he has the Moonlight Greatsword. I wanted to look for that item, but I was more focused on just trying to get through until we got like strong enough. And most of the areas were like rough, except for like those last few we went through.
After death, your bare soul is significantly more vulnerable and can even lose its will over time, as shown by the Crestfallen. At least, unlike normal spirits, getting killed will return your soul to the Nexus, for that is where yours is bound. What is the Nexus? After giving...
Yeah, what is the Nexus? Why is this the center area of everything? Like, even the old one. Entryways beneath that one giant sword.
6 archstones to the leaders of 6 powerful civilizations, the Monumentals sealed the Old One in the Nexus and sacrificed their humanity to become the Keymen we are familiar with.
Okay, so that's why they became the little babies, was because the power they used to seal the Old. Okay.
Called the Linchpin Temple in the Japanese, the Nexus acts as...
I mean, calling it a temple makes way more sense than just calling it the Nexus, but the Nexus sounds so much cooler, so it makes sense they localized it like that.
as the hub to this Archstone network, with the Monumentals serving as a sort of human sacrifice for recovering the diffused world. Filled with the survivors of a once mighty civilization, the soul arts were banned, and even knowledge of the soul arts.
Right. The amount of effort people have to do to find these animations. I would not have the patience for something like that. But mad respect for whoever found this effect, I guess. I'm assuming that's just when you run out of MP, actually, so I don't know what I'm saying. It must have been one dude who's just like spamming spells. He's like, oh no, I won't cast.
Arts was forbidden, marking the start of the medieval era, along with a hope that the world could be mended. What is the medieval era? So this would have been an age of feudal kingdoms, largely devoid of magic. Having narrowly avoided their lands being swallowed by the deep fog, the different societies obeyed the Monumental's prohibition, despite magic being so central to their cultures up until then. Key buildings like the Ivory Tower, the Dragon God Temple, or the Shrine of Storms were abandoned or buried, and many of these pagan cultures died out, or were largely forgotten.
Forgotten until, I guess, the demons came around, and then they started to resurface, which makes sense, so that's why we see magic in so many different places.
Despite all of this happening only a few hundred years ago, humans quickly forgot about the existence of souls and the soul arts, and the same was true for the Archstones, with many of them being lost and broken into fragments left to be gnawed on by rats. Outlawing knowledge carries consequences, and many barbarous cultures nurtured this aversion to even the mere legend of magic. But nowhere was this ignorance and antagonism more obvious than in the Temple of God. What is the Temple of God? It's the predominant faith that you will encounter in-game. This priesthood apparently originated in the land of Merd, where its first temple was built, and while this land of origin is now long lost, the religion has become widespread thanks to its very relevant message. The priests of these temples preach of one God who is good, and that magic is an evil which desecrates him.
I mean, from what we've just heard, that's true, so I guess there's not much point in denying that in this game.
So it should come as no surprise that this doctrine appealed to people who had just suffered an apocalypse caused by such magic, and witches have been ostracized and persecuted for their cursed sorcery ever
So Maiden Astray must have been a sorceress herself, right? It's interesting.
since. But that attitude began to change when the soul arts were rediscovered. According to the official Demon Souls website from 2009, that is unfortunately now lost, King Allant XII made a journey to the limits of human-inhabited lands, where he discovered a giant linchpin temple in a hinterlands of icy mountains. This temple is almost certainly the Nexus, and the story of his journey here is closely linked to the broken 6th Archstone.
This is something I've been off. Alright, what is it?
And the cut content of the game that once lay beyond it. Check out this video if you'd like to learn more.
Probably not going to check out that one since it's been cut, but I might check it out more. But I want to check the main lore of this game.
Thanks to the now famed Sage Frake standardizing the study of the soul arts, education and practice of magic became easy, even for common people. It wasn't uncommon to see a local magician in any given town, and anyone could learn how to perform spells. That said, rich nobles received the best instruction, and the power of this social class would have helped to maintain the status quo, deepening society's dependence on magic.
I mean, yeah, magic seems pretty strong, all things considered, so it makes sense that they would do that. You know, it's just like how people came to, you know, have all these... I mean, most technology at one point or another was just like, oh, it's not good, and okay, now we have it everywhere. Like, you know, in fire, literally people were just like, oh, fire bad, right? That's how you always hear, like, Neanderthals encountered fire, and then it's like, suddenly it's just like, no, we use it for everything, it's great.
Years passed, and Boletaria continued to flourish thanks to magic. The second scourge was inevitable. What is the second scourge? It's the current demon calamity that's befalling the world. Finally, we approach the events of the game. With the soul arts, Allant brought unprecedented prosperity to his northern kingdom of Boletaria, but once again awoke the old one below the Nexus, unleashing the deep fog and demons across his kingdom and neighboring lands.
So he got greedy, and he screwed everything up. Sounds about right.
With the deep fog only growing, and none of the heroes who entered Valifax's tear ever returning, the fog threatens the world that remains. We can suspect that one world has already fallen. Take a look at the 6th broken archstone in the Nexus. This was given to the giants of the northern lands, and it's blackened and crumbling, which brings us to world tendency. What is world tendency? So,
I heard a lot of people bring this one up, but I didn't really understand it, so this is a good point to hear about it, I guess.
a tendency is a predisposition or an inclination towards something, and in Demon Souls the world can be inclined towards either white or black tendency. In white tendency, demons are weaker, and in
I wouldn't find it hard to believe if we were mostly playing in white tendency, especially towards the end. Like, it seemed like really easy compared to like a regular Souls game, I mean.
In black tendency, demons are stronger. So earlier we talked about how the soul grants humans clarity, and that our perception can change the fabric of reality preserved by the Archstones. So therefore, it makes sense that each world actually changes to fit our perception somewhat, akin to a sort of karma. After death, for example, we naturally perceive the world as more threatening, and it becomes so as tendency darkens.
Okay, so dying actually makes it harder. That's... okay.
After defeating a major demon, on the other hand, the world is perceived as less threatening, and world tendency lightens.
Okay. I think we had a pretty easy time with most of the other areas up until bosses. I think the hardest ones we had were the like plague area the first time we went through, and maybe Tower of Latria, definitely. The mines in the beginning, but like it kind of really snowballed into easier for us, especially as we ran through it.
When a world moves towards pure tendency in either direction, interesting events occur. When the world is inclined towards black
What the heck is this thing?
tendency, for example, demonic presence is strengthened, and primeval demons are even born in
It's a primeval demon.
the world. These demons are newborn and powerless, with colorless souls only fit to grow in a world that favors them. On the flip side, in world tendency, human encounters are more common.
So in White Tendency would have been amazing to play through in that case. We missed so many potential encounters. I mean, it was still a fun game, at least. That was what I. But still, sometimes you just feel you missed out.
The influence of demons is weaker. Just so, character tendency also exists. This is the perception of self, which is dark.
Okay, I'm assuming attacking characters darkens the character tendency towards you.
After evil acts like killing another human in cold blood, or lightened after good acts like ridding the world of a black phantom.
We did a bit of that. We did.
And if you hit pure white character tendency, the Monumental will give you the Allies' Ring, in the hope that you will aid them against the demons. All of their fellows have exhausted their souls in the years since the first scourge.
Please forgive me, but I wish to concentrate. 'Tis no easy task, being a monumental.
So they need all the help they can get.
So, there's definitely some benefits to having white world tendency, but I can see how black tendency might make this more interesting for some people if like an extra challenge, I guess, and to see some more unusual things, I guess. I mean, if it's only those other demons that appear, then I'm not sure about that.
Which is why you were revived. Why were you revived in the Nexus? A brave soul who fears not death. You were brought here to destroy every last demon. Without demons to feed its souls, the old one will seek a new servant and lure you below. So you have to succeed, for the sake of the world that remains, and if not for that, then for your own sake as well, since you will be forever trapped within the Nexus otherwise. Only at the end will you be presented with a choice.
And that's what we just encountered. Oh, the maiden. She was too good for us.
Has the land found its savior, or have the demons found a new slave?
So you must travel to the lands that are not yet fully enveloped by fog, and after you triumph over the demon phalanx, the Monumental unlocks all of the other archstones that remain. What are the lands preserved by the archstones? So each land has its own deep lore and story, and now that you've got the basics, you're ready to get into specifics. So subscribe to learn about all of these places in the coming weeks.
That's Vaati brings up a good point. So if you made it this far, make sure you leave a follow and let's keep it going with some more games from moving on.
So much of Demon Soul's story that really hasn't been uncovered before, and we're gonna solve it all. Remember to check out the displate if you're interested.
Alright, Vaati. We don't. This is an old video.
That was once at the heart of a vast empire, now reduced to a crumbling ruin filled with demonic imposters. Then there's Stonefang, whose minds have unearthed a lava-soaked shrine and a dragon god buried within.
That thing was so massive. If it was just chilling down there, I'm assuming it ate so many of them when it saw that it was like freed, I guess. Or maybe not, I don't know, but like maybe it didn't need to eat, considering it was sealed away, but like even in most myths, I think the dragons like have a hunger at some point, I guess.
Latria, once the land of
Not myths, maybe like just games in general. Media, I guess.
of the learned, is now home to the vengeful sadism and horrific experiments of a resentful old man.
Is the old man the old monk that was sitting? No, the old monk was the other dude. It was the guy sitting on the throne with a wrap around his head. Or no, around his body, and then he summoned the dude with the wrap around his head. I forget what that enemy's name was. Because the old monk was the blind guy, right? So
The fourth world is the Shrine of Storms, on the island of the Shadow Men, who worshipped storms and mourned the dead with unsettling rituals.
okay, so that makes sense. All right, that
And
makes more
finally,
sense.
there's the Valley of Defilement, a rotting haven for the ill-fated and forgotten, who have been swept up into a frenzy by the arrival of a true saint. Before I go, I also want to give special thanks to Loki_DS, who you should please follow on Twitter. In the years since Demon Soul's original release,
Is there anything else? No, it looks like that's it. All right, so that was the lore of Demon Souls. It puts stuff together a little bit more, makes a lot more sense. Doesn't exactly explain where some of these bosses came from, except for like the Dragon God, King Lot, King of the Storms. But you know, like the old monk that we find in the Kingdom of Storms, and then the old man in the Tower of Latria. You know, that's not explained too well. Like he's just sitting at the top of the tower. There was a giant beating heart in the middle. Maybe that was a demon heart. I guess if that was like one of those diffused demons, that makes sense. But yeah, it's also interesting. So I'm gonna call it there, and yeah, thank y'all for sticking through it, and to y'all that were here, I hope y'all take care and have a wonderful day. Take care.